Good evening everybody, it's Rory Holiday, the physiotherapist here. I'm going to be teaching you a little bit more Pilates tonight. This program of exercise is going to be targeting our shoulders a little bit more, and although I've called it Pilates, it's really a mixture of Pilates and a few of the things that I've picked up along the way that I find quite useful, and marrying them all together seems like a good idea. We're going to start with some exercise in standing, then we're going to take it down onto the mat. So if you haven't got a mat at home, get yourself a nice large towel laid out on the floor and a hand towel as well to support your head. Okay, so in standing, we are going to start off finding our good standing posture. So feet are hip width apart. We're going to imagine our big helium balloon above the head, pulling you tall through the crown, drawing your chin in towards your throat as it does so. So it flattens out the back of the neck, it drops your shoulder blades down and back behind you, opening the collarbones a little bit to make you feel a little broader in the chest. And then we're going to move down to the pelvis, a few pelvic tilts. Imagine that pelvis is a bucket full of water. You've got hold of the rim of a bucket, you tip water out the front, you tip water out the back of the bucket, and we do a few tilts, forwards and backwards, and then we find that halfway position, that neutral position. Slight shallow curve in the lower back, we're going to maintain that there. And then from here, we're going to allow ourselves to just gently sway forwards, arms can relax by your side. As you come forward onto the balls of the feet, you'll feel your heels just begin to lift. That's where we stop. We come back onto our heels. Just feel the toes begin to lift. That's where you stop. Gently forwards and backwards. And then find that midpoint where we've got equal weight through the heels and the balls of the feet. And you feel like things are pretty stable with a square spread of weight through the feet. So we've still got the helium balloon in place, shoulder blades back, neutral lumbar spine, equal weight bearing through the feet. Now the first movement we're going to do is an arm lift or an arm float. We're going to have both arms going in this, but before we do that, I want you to pop one hand on your rib cage before you start to float to the opposite arm. And I want you to feel with this hand on your rib cage what happens when we get towards the top of the movement. Do you feel like the rib cage starts to lift forwards and away from you? Or do you feel like it stays still? It might go upwards a little bit, which is fine, but what we don't want to feel is as though it is tilting forwards. In other words, your rib cage is leaning back, okay? So we're going to try and keep the rib cage relatively still, allowing itself to lift upwards only as the arms lift, and then gently back down. Now you might think, well, that feels fine. That's good. Try the other side. Hand on the rib cage on the other side. Float that arm up as high as you can go, and you'll feel that rib cage start to respond. And what happens there? Does it just go upwards? If it starts to go forwards with you, see if you can control it. Not by pushing it with your hand, just by thinking about muscles through the tummy and preventing that rib cage from lifting too high or too far forwards. Now once you get into the rhythm of that, if you identify there is a bit of a problem, you'll find with a bit of repetition, you can start to isolate the shoulder movement without allowing that rib cage to lift too far forwards. Okay. Once you're into that, we're going to get both arms involved in that movement. So we're lifting both arms up, but when both arms go, there's more likely to be more movement to the rib cage. So you just got to keep a little bit of a watchful eye on that one, or a bit of an internal eye on the movement. Allowing yourself to breathe still. It doesn't mean hold your breath. Keep the rib cage still and slowly take those arms up and down. So ideally we're going to breathe out as we lift the arms. Breathing in as we bring them back down. I've still got my helium balloon in place, still got my neutral lumbar spine, still got my equal weight bearing through my feet, and we're going to do one more repetition, and we're going to have a little bit of a break. Okay, good. It's a nice simple arm floats. Next exercise we're going to do is called robbery. We're going to be lifting the arms out to the side here. Elbows are going to be bent to about a right angle, and we can let them come back down to our hip to begin with. The movement's going to be rotation through the shoulder joints, and you're going to make sure the shoulder blades don't hitch up toward your ears. So we've got to keep the neck nice and long as we do this one. Lift those hands. Notice how the hands end up a little bit wider than the elbows when it starts, or a little bit narrower. So imagine that you've got an axis from the elbow through to the shoulder, and you're just rotating through that axis. If you've got any pain, just go as far as pain allows. So you don't need to go all of the way. And the elbows are in line with the side of the body as we do this movement. So there's no sense of pulling them back, okay? They're just rotating in their sockets. A few repetitions of that one. And as you get into this one, you soon learn if one of your shoulders is a little bit weak, if your rotator cuff hasn't got much fatigue resistance, because you'll find it gets very tired very quickly. So we'll do one more repetition and then we're going to have a little bit of a rest. Okay, now I'm going to complicate matters. We're going to go opposite directions with the movement. Okay, so we've gone both in the same direction before, now we're going to go opposites. We're going to bring those elbows back out to the side. We're going to lift both up to begin with, let one come back down, doesn't matter which one. So hand back down towards your hip, and then we're going to alternate sides. Okay, so you're moving a little bit like a robot, keeping that neck nice and long. So as that hand comes up, there's a temptation to shrug that shoulder up toward your ear. Don't allow that to happen. That's looking good, well done. Still breathing, breathing with each repetition. And if you're starting to fatigue on one side or on both, what does your body want to do about it? Start to look for how you might compensate. If you're compensating and you can feel it, have a little rest. Okay, have a little bit of a break there anyway. Okay, right, so we're going to move on to something different now. We're going to get ourselves down onto the mat. We're going to do our usual way of getting down, using a roll down, so we get a bit of spinal mobility in there as well. We're going to tuck the chin gently down onto the chest, shoulder blades roll forwards, and as we keep moving downwards with the hands, one vertebra at a time is rolling forwards on top of the one below it, until we get to the point where the lower back is bending, and then we're going to allow the hips to do some work by tilting the tailbone up towards the ceiling. That should give you a bit of a stretch into the hamstrings, and just so that we're sure, we're going to repeat it over. We're going to work our way back out, tuck the tailbone under, all the way up until we're fully upright, chin back into the chest, shoulder blades rolling forwards, bending that spine between the chest, between the shoulder blades, and as that lower back begins to bend, push the tailbone up to the ceiling to get a stretch into the hamstrings, allow the knees to bend, and we're going to go down onto all fours. Okay, so once we're in all fours, we're going to set ourselves up nice and stable. So we've got hips over knees, not behind knees, not in front of knees, directly above knees. Shoulders over wrists. From there we can do a few of our pelvic tilts. We can find that neutral lumbar spine, which should leave us with a small curve in the lower back. From there we're going to keep the chest lifted up between the shoulder blades, and we're going to tuck the chin up in toward your throat, so the back of the neck feels flattened and your face, whilst doing the exercises, is looking at the space between your hands. Okay, you can move your towel out of the way if it's in the way there. So we keep the chest lifted, and all we're going to do is a little bit of a sway forwards. Now a little bit of imagination helps here. Imagine you've got a great big tray of drinks on your back, and those drinks are full to the brim, all stacked tight together. Try not to cause any spillage, any clinking of the glasses. We're just going to move gently, which means basically from your shoulders down to your hips, your body has to remain absolutely still. So the only things that are really moving are your shoulder joints, your hip joints and your knees. Once we've done a few forwards and backwards, we're going to come back to our centre point where we've got the shoulders over the wrist, and then we're going to go sideways. So as I come towards you with my shoulder, I'm bringing my hip as well. And as I go away from you, I'm taking my hip with me as well. So if we were looking from above, the spine would stay nice and straight. It wouldn't be snaking at all. It'd stay nice and straight. And again, we're going to try and keep those drinks nice and stable. We're not going to spill anything there. Keep it there. Keep that face looking between the hands. Chin lifted up in toward your throat. Chest up toward your shoulder blades. Neutral lumbar spine. Okay. Now, for some of you that'll be quite straightforward. For some of you that's a little bit more of a challenge. You'll feel like your chest wants to keep dropping. You've got to keep working at keeping it up. Okay. So you might need to do a couple of sets of that exercise just to get into it if you find it quite easy. Let's have a little rest for a moment. Now the next exercise is going to be pretty similar, but we're going to be taking weight off one hand, okay? Now with this exercise, it's going to put a lot more weight on one shoulder. We're going to try and do the swaying movements once we're in that position. If you can't manage the sway, just hold the position as you float the hand. Okay, so we're back into position. Shoulders over wrists, hips over knees. Toes can either be tucked under or relaxed away, wherever they're most comfortable. Chest lifted up, neutral lumbar spine, face looking at the floor between your hands. So I'm going to lift one hand out in front of me, keeping that in place. I'm just going to sway forwards and backwards, still imagining my tray of drinks. Now that I'm working a little bit harder to stabilise this movement, my lower back would really like to start to cheat, and it would like to round over. but I've got to work to keep it a little bit flatter, keep that little curve in place, and we're going to do one more repetition and put that down. Keep that chest lifted, reset yourself, chin up in towards your throat, neutral lumbar spine, lift the hand, and then we're going to go forwards and backwards. And again, your chest will want to droop down. Keep it lifted high as you can go throughout the movement. And you'll feel like the tummy muscles are having to work a little bit harder. And we're going to do one more, then we're going to switch sides. So we're just going to do it once more on each side. Gentle sway forwards and backwards. You'll have an idea of which side is perhaps stronger than the other. You'll feel one side perhaps fatigues a little bit quicker. Keeping that neutral lumbar spine, okay? Rest there, opposite side, last set. And we're aiming for about 5 or 6 repetitions, keeping the chest lifted. Okay, and then rest. Now, if you feel like your shoulders are getting a little bit warm, a little bit achy, that might be enough for you for the moment. I'm going to add another couple of exercises in, so see how you go. These are a little bit harder, so beware. Don't force yourself with these ones if you don't like the look of them or if they feel a bit uncomfortable. Okay, we're going to start off needing our towel, so we'll fold our towel to support our head whilst we're laid down on our front. Okay. Now I'm going to be lifting my head to turn to speak to you so you can hear me. You're going to have your head face down. Your pillow is going to support your forehead, and your arms, shoulders allowing, are going to be at your side and slightly in front of you. Okay, so with your forehead down, chin tucked up in towards your throat. We're going to let the shoulder blades set down the lower in towards your lower back. Obviously, we're not going to get there, but you're aiming for the lower back a little bit with the shoulder blades. As we start to bring the arms into this, your shoulder blades are going to want to lift toward your ears. It's your job to keep them down, keep your neck long, keep your chin tucked up in towards your throat. So I'm going to have a breath in to prepare once my head is down. And then I'm going to be lifting my wrist, first of all, on each side, away from the floor, and then my forearm and elbow. So I lead with the wrist. Head down, lead with the wrist, lift the forearms, and then slowly elbows down, wrist down. I call this one the W lift. So as you lift, you look like a letter W from above. Chin tucked up in toward the throat, forehead supported, wrists, elbows, elbows down, wrists down. Keep those shoulder blades set down. Let's go again. Lift the wrists, lift the elbows, elbows down, wrists down. Now if that's feeling quite easy, we're going to hold it for a little while. So we're going to keep the head down, lift the wrists, lift the elbows, and hold that there. Keep breathing whilst you're there. Keep breathing, elbows down, relax back down. Okay, we're going to try that one again. Lift the wrists, lift the elbows, keep the neck long, keep your shoulder blades set down. Still breathing, elbows down, wrist down. I'm going to add one more layer of difficulty to this exercise. So if you feel like you're doing well, add this next layer. We're basically going to be lifting the head. Now I want you to imagine something here. Imagine you've got a grapefruit tucked under your chin, between your chin and your throat, and you are not going to drop it on the floor. In other words, as you lift your head, you are not going to look forward. You're going to lift your head just an inch with the chin tucked up in toward the throat. So that's going to be the first part of the movement. Chin up in towards your throat, wrists, elbows, hold that there, elbows down, wrists down, head down. Head up, wrists up and lift. Still breathing, elbows down, wrists down, head down. Now as you bring the head up, the lower back muscles want to kick in a little bit more. Think about your tailbone. Your tailbone wants to remain slightly tucked down between your buttocks, between your legs. As you lift your hands, the temptation is to stick your tailbone up towards the ceiling and overarch the lower back inwards. So just make sure you maintain that neutral lumbar spine still. So we're going to do another couple of repetitions to finish this one. We're going to get our forehead up with the grapefruit tucked under the chin, lift the wrists, lift the elbows, hold, still breathing, elbows down, wrist down, head down. Last repetition, lift that up, lift the wrists, up we go, and hold, still breathing, elbows down, wrist down, head down. Okay, Now, we're going to come out of that position. We're going to come up into a kneeling position. And we're going to finish off with a little bit of rotation for the back. So, I'm going to start with 1 foot forwards. Okay, left foot forwards, hands out in front of you. I'm going to keep one hand pointing forwards. With my left foot forwards, my left hand, I'm going to be looking at my left hand as I rotate it around to the side. So I'm looking all the time, and then I bring that back. Now, that poses a little bit of a balance challenge. If you find that you lose your balance by moving your head, your alternative is to stay looking forwards. It doesn't allow you to turn your torso quite so much, but it keeps your balance. So we either keep the head looking forwards, or if your balance is good enough, we look at the hand, okay? And then I'm going to switch legs. So I'm going to put my right leg forward, left foot back. Knees bent to a right angle, other knees bent to a right angle with toes behind me. They can either go down, or if they feel a bit better to have them up, keep them there. Hands out in front. I'm going to move my right arm out to the side as I rotate, trying to keep my balance, looking at my hand all the time. And of course, if balance is no good, turn the hand in the torso, but just look at the hand in front of you. So we either keep the head still, or we allow the head to rotate with the movement. And we'll do another repetition. Okay. Now, we're going to ease our way from there into a crouch. Tailbone goes up towards the ceiling to stretch the hamstrings, and then we slowly curl our way back out to reverse the roll down. And then we're back upright. Okay. So those exercises targeted the shoulders a little bit more. Of course, you can spend a little bit more time on each one of those and build up the numbers of reps and sets as you feel fit. See how you go. Don't work into pain. And hopefully you can progress these with me as we move forward. I'll speak to you later. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.